My parents thought it would be hilarious if I missed my flight home. Let's see what she can do. Hi, my name is Kala, and my family. They decided my life was nothing more than a joke. It started with a lie, one that left me stranded, alone, at an airport, waiting for a flight that wasn't even real. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but then I saw the messages. Laughing at me, mocking me. They didn't forget me. They wanted to leave me behind. But the worst part? That was just the beginning. They stole from me, manipulated me, used my name to take out loans I never agreed to. And when I finally cut them off, when I refused to be their safety net, they tried to ruin me. Public humiliation, lies, threats. They did everything they could to make sure I failed without them. And for a while, I believed them. The airport buzzed with life. Loudspeaker announcements, hurried footsteps, distant laughter. But I stood still, my duffel bag slipping from my grip as I reread the flight confirmation for the third time. Yesterday. The ticket was booked for yesterday. A cold weight settled in my stomach. I scrambled for my phone, my fingers clumsy as I dialed my father's number. The call rang, once, twice, voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. My chest tightened. My heart hammered against my ribs as I scrolled through my messages, hoping, praying for some kind of explanation. And then my phone buzzed. Ronan! Damn, sis! Looks like you're stuck. Let's see how you survive now. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't a mistake. It was a joke, a cruel, twisted game orchestrated by my own family. I forced my feet to move, scanning the crowd like I could somehow will them back. Like this was some kind of sick prank, and any second now, my father would appear, arms crossed, waiting for me to admit defeat. The loudspeaker crackled overhead. Final boarding call for Flight 207 to Denver. Passengers, please proceed to Gate 14 immediately. A couple hurried past me, laughing. A child clutched her mother's hand, dragging a stuffed rabbit behind her. A lump lodged in my throat. Then another buzz. Lilith! You'll be fine, Kala. You always figure things out. A single tear slid down my cheek. They weren't coming back. My hands trembled as I checked my wallet. $23.50. An expired student ID. A receipt from some gas station. I opened my suitcase. A few clothes, no toothbrush, no charger. Panic clawed at my chest. I was alone. I spent that first night in a corner of the terminal, curled up in a plastic chair, watching flights I would never be on blink across the departure screens. By morning, the airport had grown unfamiliar. Cold, sterile. A place that didn't belong to me. The coffee shop cashier eyed me suspiciously when I counted out crumpled bills for the cheapest thing on the menu. I walked until my feet ached, until the automatic doors whooshed open and I stepped into the Texas heat. The city stretched before me, loud, fast, indifferent. I had nowhere to go. A year passed. I learned to survive. I found work at a diner, a greasy spoon on the edge of town, the kind of place where the coffee was burnt, and the jukebox only played half the songs. I scrubbed dishes. I bussed tables. I worked until my fingers ached, then did it all over again the next day. I slept in a room above a laundromat, where the walls were thin and the air smelled like detergent and mold. I kept my head down. Marlo, the owner, didn't ask questions. She watched me, sharp-eyed but silent, like she could see the cracks in me but knew better than to pry. And maybe, for the first time, I was free. No one controlled me. No one dictated my future. But survival had a cost. I had no safety net, no family, no one to call if things went wrong. And they did go wrong. It was a slow night. I was wiping down a table when the door opened, and a voice I hadn't heard in over a year slithered through the diner. Well, well. So this is where you ended up. I froze. Cormac Whitmore stood in the doorway. The same tailored suit, the same cold eyes scanning the room, taking it all in with thinly veiled disgust. The diner fell silent. The cook behind the counter stopped mid-motion, spatula hovering over the griddle. The couple in the booth by the window turned to watch. Cormac took a slow step forward. This is what happens when you think you can survive without family, Calla. You were supposed to be better than this. I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around the rag in my hand. What do you want? He scoffed, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. I told you, you were never going to be more than a waitress scraping by. Guess I was right. Heat rushed to my face. He was enjoying this. He wanted me humiliated, small, just like before. But I wasn't the same girl they left behind. You done? Marlowe's voice cut through the tension like a knife. She stood by the counter, arms crossed, unimpressed. Or should I get someone to escort you out? Cormac let out a low laugh, shaking his head. I don't need to waste another second here. He turned and walked out. Didn't even look back. I should have felt relief. Instead, I gripped the counter so tightly my knuckles went white. Anger burned beneath my skin. No more running, no more pretending. I would prove them wrong. But proving them wrong meant facing something I never wanted to see again. My past. It had been 5 years since I'd been left behind. 5 years of scraping by, building something out of nothing, convincing myself that I was untouchable. I wasn't. I had my own tiny apartment now, a single-room space above a laundromat that smelled like detergent and desperation. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I worked long shifts at the diner, saved every penny, and ignored the ghosts of my past. Until the past came knocking. The phone rang early that morning. Ms. Whitmore, we need to discuss the outstanding loan under your name. I frowned. Loan? I don't have a loan. A pause. Ms. Whitmore, there's a $15,000 loan in your name, opened last year. Everything in me went still. That's not possible, I said, my voice sharper now. Send me the paperwork. Minutes later, the email came through. My fingers trembled as I opened the attachment. And then my stomach dropped. There it was. A loan document. My name, my supposed signature, and a cosigner, Ronan Whitmore. I gripped my phone so tightly I thought it might crack. My own brother had stolen my identity. He had taken out a loan in my name, let the debt pile up, and never once thought to warn me. My phone buzzed again. A text. From him. Guess you found out. No big deal, just fix it. A slow, simmering rage spread through me. I had spent 5 years cutting them out. 5 years proving I didn't need them. And they still found a way to use me. I didn't call Ronan. He wasn't worth it. I called her instead. The phone barely rang once before she answered. Oh, Calla, sweetheart, it's been so long. My throat tightened. That voice, honeyed, soft, like she had been waiting to hear from me. Like she hadn't erased me from her life. I forced steel into my tone. Did you know? A pause. Know what, darling? About the loan. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, in a voice just barely above a whisper, she admitted, Yes. I closed my eyes. She kept talking, rushing the words now. But you have to understand, Calla. Ronan was in trouble. He needed help. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. He needed help. My voice shook. So you let him steal from me? Lilith sighed, the sound of a woman exhausted by her own choices. We thought you'd be okay, Calla. You've always been so independent, so strong. Ronan just what? I snapped. Needed someone to clean up his mess, and you let him use me? Tears filled her voice now. I didn't know what else to do. You could have chosen me, I said quietly. Just once. Silence. I didn't wait for an excuse. I hung up. The betrayal was worse than the night they abandoned me. That night, at least, they had let me go. Now, I realized, they had never let me go at all. I sat in my dimly lit apartment, the loan document crumpled in my hands. I could fix it. I could pay it off, take the hit just like always. Or I could fight back. A cold, hard certainty settled in my bones. They didn't get to use me anymore. I grabbed my laptop and started typing. First step? Closing every door they could use to reach me. I locked my credit, froze every account, filed a fraud report. Next step? Finding out just how deep this mess went. I wasn't cleaning up after them. I was burning it all down. If they wanted me to fix their mess, they'd regret ever thinking I would. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Cutting off my family should have been the end of it. I had taken back control, locked down my finances, and ensured they couldn't steal from me again. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more. More damage, more lies. And if there was one thing I had learned about Ronan, it was that he never stopped at just enough. So, I started searching. I combed through my bank statements, line by line, looking for anything out of place. Most of it was normal: rent payments, groceries, my small savings deposit at the end of each month. But then I checked my credit report, and my stomach dropped. A second account, one I had never opened. It was drained dry. Not just that, there were thousands in cash advances linked to my name over the past 2 years. My heart pounded as I cross-checked the withdrawals. Most of them had been taken out near East Austin, close to an area notorious for illegal gambling. And then I saw the name: Apex Financial Holdings. I opened a new tab and started searching. It took less than 5 minutes to confirm my worst suspicion. Apex wasn't just any financial company. It was a shell business, a front for loan sharks. And it was owned by a man I had only heard whispers about: Dante Morales. A criminal. A man who didn't deal in negotiations. He dealt in consequences. My fingers tightened around my phone as a sick realization settled in my gut. Ronan didn't just steal from me. He had dragged me into something much, much worse. I knew I should stay out of it, let Ronan burn for his mistakes. But if my name was tangled in this mess, I needed to know how deep it went. That's how I ended up outside a warehouse in East Austin at nearly midnight. The place looked abandoned, but I knew better. The street was too quiet, the kind of silence that only came when people knew better than to ask questions. My pulse pounded as I stepped inside. The air was thick with sweat, cigarette smoke, and something else. Fear. And then I saw him. Ronan. He looked wrecked, bruises on his cheek, split lip, clothes wrinkled like he had been sleeping in them. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I saw him. Dante Morales. He sat at a table, dressed in a perfectly pressed suit, completely at ease. 2 men flanked him, still as statues, their expressions unreadable. He barely glanced at me before smirking. "So you're the sister," he said, his voice smooth. "The one with the clean record." I kept my face blank. "I have nothing to do with this." Dante leaned forward slightly, folding his hands together. "See, that's the thing. Your brother said otherwise." My jaw clenched. I turned to Ronan, who wouldn't meet my eyes. "Calla, please," he muttered. "You can fix this." Fix it, like I had been doing my entire life. Dante slid a document across the table. A debt contract, $50,000, and my name, forged, as a co-signer. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. Ronan hadn't just dragged me into his mess. He had signed my name into a deal with a criminal. I exhaled slowly, forcing my hands to stay steady. I looked Dante in the eye. "I didn't sign this, and I'm not paying a damn cent." Silence. Then Dante smiled. A slow, knowing smile that sent a chill down my spine. "That's unfortunate," he murmured. "Because your brother here—" He nodded to his men. They grabbed Ronan, shoving him forward. He stumbled, barely catching himself before hitting the table. "Is running out of time," Ronan whimpered. I barely recognized the sound. My brother, the same man who had laughed when they left me at that airport, looked at me now like I was his last chance at survival. His fingers wrapped around my wrist. "Calla, please," he whispered. "If I don't pay—" I yanked my arm free. "You did this to yourself." His face twisted in desperation. "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice," I snapped. "You just made the wrong one." Dante let out a soft chuckle, like he was watching an interesting show. "Family is funny like that," he mused, "always leaving behind collateral damage." I refused to let him rattle me. I turned on my heel and walked away, my heart hammering. I knew this wasn't over. Dante wouldn't forget my face. And Ronan? Ronan wasn't done using me. I had just declared war against my own brother. And my family? They were about to escalate this fight. I had done everything right. I cut off all contact, blocked Ronan's number, notified my bank of every fraud risk imaginable. I even filed a report, though I knew damn well that people like Dante Morales didn't care about what was legal. I tried to move on, but my family didn't believe in moving on. They only believed in getting what they wanted. So, when my phone rang one evening with an unknown number, I almost ignored it. Almost. I shouldn't have picked up. Calla? A voice I hadn't heard in years. Lilith. She sounded different, weaker, shaky. Please, sweetheart, just meet us for dinner. We need to talk. Every fiber of my being screamed no. But there was something in her voice, real desperation, and for a split second, I felt the pull. One last time. They picked the place on purpose. Some fancy restaurant downtown. A place where people like us didn't belong. The kind of place where everything was white tablecloths and fake politeness, where the rich ate steak while drowning in debt. And sure enough, they were already seated when I walked in. Cormac, composed, cold, looking at me like a business opportunity. Lilith, red-eyed, clutching tissues like an actress mid-performance. And Ronan, silent, ashamed, or pretending to be. I didn't sit down. Whatever you're about to ask, the answer is no. Cormac barely reacted, just folded his hands like he was negotiating a deal. We're not here to fight, Calla. We need your help. I crossed my arms. That's new. Lilith reached for me, her voice soft, pleading. Ronan made mistakes. We all did. But we're family, and family helps each other. The words were so hollow, I almost laughed. Cormac reached into his jacket and slid a document across the table. I didn't pick it up. You should read it, he said smoothly. So I did, and my blood went ice cold. A notarized contract, a legal agreement making me financially responsible for Ronan's debt. $50,000, owed to Dante Morales. I inhaled sharply. Cormac's voice was steady. Sign this, and we'll take care of the rest. Dante will leave you alone. Lilith grabbed my hand. Her fingers were trembling. Please, baby, it's just money. I stared at her, then at Ronan. He hadn't said a word. Finally, he spoke, quiet, hesitant. I'll pay you back, I swear, and that's when I did laugh. A deep, bitter sound that made Cormac's jaw tighten. I leaned forward, looking each of them dead in the eye. You think I'm that stupid? Cormac's smile thinned. It's the right thing to do, Calla. I shook my head, disgust curling in my chest. The right thing would have been not stealing from me. The right thing would have been not abandoning me in an airport and then coming back years later, expecting me to fix your mess. Lilith flinched. Don't say that. I stood up. Enjoy your dinner. Cormac's voice turned sharp, low enough that only I could hear. If you walk away, don't expect us to be there when you need us. I froze for half a second. Then, I turned back. And I smiled. You were never there to begin with. I walked out. They just made their last mistake with me. And Ronan? He wasn't done playing dirty yet. It had been 2 days since the dinner, and I had expected the retaliation to come immediately. But the silence was worse. My family didn't do silence. It meant something was brewing. I tried to focus on work, but the air at the diner felt different. The usual chatter among customers had shifted. Conversations dropped when I passed by. A few people shot me quick glances, then looked away just as fast. Marlo caught my wrist as I cleared a table, her grip firm. You need to see this, Calla. She handed me her phone, and I barely had to glance at the screen before my stomach turned to stone. A post on a local Austin community page. Some people just abandon their family when things get tough. Calla Whitmore. What a heartless, selfish disgrace. I gritted my teeth as I scrolled. Hundreds of shares, hundreds of comments, people I didn't know, dragging my name through the mud. Some called me ungrateful. Some said I should be ashamed. Some even suggested that someone like me didn't deserve to work in a place like this. I didn't have to check the account that posted it. I already knew it was Ronan. He hadn't just come after me. He was trying to ruin me. My grip tightened around the phone as I scrolled, scanning the endless flood of strangers judging me over a story they knew nothing about. This wasn't just a warning. This was a public execution. I stormed out of the diner, barely hearing Marlowe calling my name. My hands shook, but not from fear. From rage. I dialed his number. He picked up immediately, smug. Waiting. "You think this is funny?" I snapped. Ronan sighed dramatically. "I don't know what you're talking about, sis." "Bullshit. Take it down." Now silence. Then laughter. Or what? That voice. The same one I'd heard my entire life. The one that lied, manipulated, stole, and still thought he could get away with it. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. "You think walking away makes you safe?" Ronan said smoothly. "It doesn't. People remember things, and so do I." It wasn't just a taunt, it was a threat. I forced my voice to stay calm. Controlled. "Try me, Ronan. I dare you." He chuckled. "We'll see about that." And then the line went dead. I didn't panic. I planned. First, I called a lawyer. I need to talk about a defamation case. Then, I locked down everything. Every social media account, every email. I scrubbed any public trace of my past, my job, my life. If he wanted to destroy me, I'd make damn sure there was nothing left to target. I warned Marlowe. "This might not be over," I told her. She just nodded, arms crossed. "You let me know if I need to throw someone out." And then I made a decision. This wasn't just about family anymore. This was war. If Ronan wanted to play dirty, I'd make sure he regretted it. And then, just as I expected, they escalated things again. The smear post had doubled in reach overnight. The comments were relentless. Strangers who didn't know a damn thing about me were tearing me apart online, calling me selfish, ungrateful, a disgrace. And at the diner, the shift in energy was undeniable. People whispered when I passed by. Customers who used to chat now avoided eye contact. Even Marlowe seemed to be watching me differently, like she was waiting to see if I'd break. I wouldn't. But I should have known this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The door swung open with too much force. I didn't have to look up. I already knew. Cormac, Ronan, Lilith. They walked in together, like a perfectly staged scene. Cormac adjusted his expensive suit, eyes scanning the place with the disgust of a man who thought he was better than everyone here. Lilith clutched her purse like the air itself might dirty her. And Ronan? He leaned against the counter with that same smug smirk he had been wearing since we were kids, like he was always one step ahead, always in control. The diner went silent. I felt every set of eyes shift to me. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. They came here for one reason: to humiliate me. Cormac spoke first, his voice loud on purpose. "Calla, we need to talk." I crossed my arms. "We have nothing to talk about." Lilith stepped forward, her voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "Please, Calla, we just want to understand why you're doing this to us." My stomach twisted. That tone, that same fake pleading voice she had always used to make me doubt myself. People started whispering. I could feel them forming their own opinions, deciding whether I was the villain or the victim. Ronan shook his head, laughing under his breath. "You really have no shame, do you?" His voice dripped with disappointment, like he was the one who had been wronged. "After everything we did for you?" I clenched my fists so hard, my nails dug into my palms. Cormac tilted his head, assessing me. "You think you're better than us now?" His voice was smooth, patient. "This little diner job, this life you're trying to build, it's pathetic, Calla." Something snapped inside me. I took a step forward. My voice was sharp, cutting. "You don't get to come in here and act like you're the victims." The diner was dead silent. I took another step. "You abandoned me." Another. "You stole from me." My voice rose, cutting through the room. "And now, When I finally cut you off, you come crawling back. Why? Because you need something? Cormac's expression darkened. Watch your tone, Calla. I laughed, cold, humorless. Or what? You'll leave me stranded again? Ronan scoffed, shaking his head. You really think you can just walk away from us? I met his eyes. I already did. Lilith started crying. We're your family. My voice was ice cold. Number you were just the people who raised me. Marlo stepped in then, her voice calm but firm. You hurt her! Get the hell out! Cormac held my gaze for a long moment. And then, just like that, he turned and walked out. Lilith followed, still clutching her purse like she had just survived something horrific. Ronan was the last to leave. But before he stepped through the door, he turned back, locking eyes with me one last time. He wasn't done, but neither was I. The diner stayed silent for a long moment. Then Marlo exhaled. You okay? I let out a slow breath. Number, but I will be. I looked around, meeting the gazes of my coworkers, the customers still watching me. Some were sympathetic, some were still judging me. But none of it mattered anymore, because I knew the truth. And now so did everyone else. They wanted to humiliate me. Instead, they showed the world exactly who they really were. And that's when they decided to destroy me for real. I thought the public showdown at the diner had been the climax. The moment they realized I was done, the moment they'd slink back into the shadows, licking their wounds. I was wrong. They came harder. The smear campaign got worse. Ronan doubled down online, spreading lies so outrageous they should have been laughable. But people believed them anyway. Cormac called my workplace. He told Marlo that I was troubled, a disgrace, that I was stealing from family, and a danger to customers. Lilith left voicemails, sobbing, begging. You don't understand what you're doing, Calla. This is killing us. It's breaking your father's heart. Their desperation reeked of manipulation. But the final straw? Cormac showed up at my apartment. The knock was sharp, demanding. I ignored it. Then his voice came through the door, low and full of venom. You think this is over, Calla? You're nothing without us. My hands clenched into fists. Every instinct told me to stay silent. But I was done hiding. I opened the door. Cormac stood there, smug. Ronan just behind him, arms crossed like a soldier waiting for orders. Lilith clutched her purse, her eyes already red like she was preparing for a performance. Cormac smiled, like he had already won. I didn't let him speak. I pushed past him, stepping onto the sidewalk. Somewhere public, visible. If he wanted a fight, he wasn't going to get it behind closed doors. They followed me. The plaza was busy, people walking, shopping, a few sitting at the cafe across the street. Perfect. Cormac's voice cut through the air, sharp and polished, like a weapon he'd wielded his whole life. You owe us, Calla. We gave you life, and this is how you repay us? People turned to watch. Lilith sniffled, her voice wounded. We just want our daughter back. Ronan sneered, shaking his head. You think you're special? You're still the same scared little girl we left at that airport. I sucked in a slow breath. Calm, controlled, deadly. Then I stepped forward. You don't own me anymore. Cormac's eyes flashed. You were a mistake. The air went still. For a moment, no one moved. I saw real hate in his face. Not just anger, not just frustration, pure, seething resentment. And I realized something. He had never wanted me to survive without them. They needed me to fail, because if I could succeed without them, then their power meant nothing. I reached into my bag. I pulled out a check, and I handed it to him. $73.50, the exact cost of a one-way bus ticket back home. That's what it would have cost me to go back, if I ever wanted to. Cormac's face turned red. He snatched the check, ripped it in half, and let the pieces flutter to the ground. His voice shook with rage. You ungrateful little... Security appeared. 2 uniformed guards. Is there a problem here? Cormac stepped back, barely containing his fury. Ronan spat at the ground, then turned and walked away. Lilith gave me one last tearful look before following them. I didn't watch them go. I already knew. They had nothing left to take from me. That night, my phone rang. Marlo. You okay? I hesitated, then nodded to myself. Yeah. I think I am. The past doesn't disappear overnight. But for the first time, I was no longer chained to it. They wanted me to be nothing without them. But I was finally free. And now, for the first time in my life, I could finally decide who I wanted to be. It had been a week since I severed the last rotting thread that tied me to my family. A week of silence. No manipulative texts, no guilt-tripping calls. Just silence. And at first, it felt like victory. But victory didn't feel like I thought it would. The quiet was too loud. I had spent my whole life fighting, bracing for the next hit, waiting for the next demand, the next cruel word disguised as love. And now, there was nothing. No enemy, no war, just me. And I didn't know what to do with that. The knock on my door was soft, hesitant. I almost didn't answer. But when I opened it, Ezra stood there, a bag of takeout in his hands. No dramatic speeches, no questions, just understanding. I stepped aside to let him in, and we sat on the couch, eating quietly. For the first time in days, I wasn't alone. Ezra broke the silence first. You don't have to pretend you're okay with this, he said, voice low. I exhaled, setting down my chopsticks. I know, but I also know this was the right thing to do. He nodded, squeezing my hand. And for the first time, I didn't flinch at someone reaching out. The next morning, I walked into Marlo's diner, my second home. Marlo stood behind the counter, arms crossed, shaking her head. Took you long enough? I blinked. What? She gestured around. You've been walking around like a damn ghost for the past week. I was wondering when you'd finally snap out of it. A small laugh slipped out. So? You're saying I should stop sulking? Marlo smirked. I'm saying you're wasting time. Life's waiting for you, kid. And just like that, something shifted inside me. My past didn't define me. I had people who actually cared about me. For the first time, I truly believed it. Later that day, Marlo slid a small envelope across the counter. I frowned, opening it. Inside was a set of keys. I looked up, confused. What's this? Marlo leaned against the counter, casual as ever. A fresh start. A space of your own. If you're ready. I looked down at the keys, my heart hammering. It wasn't just a gift. It was a lease, a restaurant lease. Marlo was giving me a shot to open my own place. No strings attached. I gripped the keys tightly, emotion swelling in my chest. I don't know what to say. Marlo shrugged. Then don't say anything. Just do something with it. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about a restaurant. This was about finally building something that was mine. For the first time, my future was in my own hands, and I wasn't about to waste it. Months had passed since I held those keys in my hands, uncertain and terrified. Since I stepped into the empty space that would become mine. Now I stood in the middle of my restaurant. My restaurant. It wasn't perfect. The floors had scuff marks that wouldn't buff out. The chairs were mismatched because I could only afford secondhand, and the kitchen still had a few quirks that drove me insane. But it was alive. The air buzzed with laughter, with the clinking of plates, the hum of conversations. Every table was full. People came back. Not because they owed me anything, not because they needed something from me, but because they wanted to. Marlo sat at the counter, arms crossed, a knowing smirk on her face. Told you, she said simply. I rolled my eyes. Told me what? That you'd pull this off. Ezra walked in, sleeves rolled up, tying a borrowed apron around his waist. And that you'd make it look easy, I scoffed. If by easy, you mean working 17-hour days on my feet, sure. Ezra just grinned and grabbed a tray of drinks. I wiped my hands on my apron and took a slow, steady breath. This was it. This was what I had fought for. This was mine. Long after the last customer left, I sat alone in the quiet. For the first time in months, I did something I had promised myself I wouldn't. I checked social media. I never unfollowed them. I told myself it was out of indifference, but I knew better. I scrolled. Ronan was still a mess. He had moved on to new scams, still conning people, still making excuses. But people were catching on. The comments under his posts were full of accusations, people calling him out. No one was falling for it anymore. Cormac's world had crumbled. The hardware store had gone under. His posts were bitter, filled with legal battles over unpaid debts. Once, people in town respected him. Now, they ignored him. No one cared. Lilith still played the devoted mother. Her page was full of nostalgic posts. Missing my family today. Hold your loved ones close. There were old pictures, holidays, smiling faces, but never any of me. That was when I finally understood. They had spent so long trying to pull me back, but not because they loved me, because they needed me. And now that I was useless to them, they had erased me completely. For the first time, it didn't hurt. I closed the laptop. I wouldn't check again. The past wasn't my concern anymore. I walked to the front of the restaurant, where Ezra stood with a dish towel slung over his shoulder, watching me. You coming to bed? I looked around one last time. This wasn't just a restaurant, it was proof. Proof that I survived. Proof that I won. I smiled. Yeah, I'm done here. They spent their whole lives trying to break me. But in the end, I built something better than they ever could. Before we wrap up this story, I want to leave you with something to think about. Life doesn't hand you a perfect beginning. Some of us are born into broken families, into situations where love is conditional, where survival means navigating manipulation, betrayal, and pain. But here's what I've learned. You are not bound by the people who try to break you. There will always be those who think they own you, whether it's family, society, or your past mistakes. They will try to convince you that without them, you are nothing. But that's a lie. The truth is, you get to decide who you become. Success is not revenge, it's freedom. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and build something better. So I want to ask you, have you ever had to walk away from someone who was holding you back? Was it family, a toxic friend, a job that drained you? What gave you the strength to finally say, I deserve better? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you feel something, hit that like button and type 1 in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. I want to connect with you. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Because sometimes the best way to move forward is to know you're not alone. See you in the next one.